ladies and gentlemen, we made it. Welcome to the 2026 NBA offseason for the Dallas Mavericks. And I'm just glad that we are here. There's no more basketball being played this season, if I'm being honest. It was a season from hell for this Dallas Mavericks team. But we're going to take a look at what they can do this offseason to try to improve this team and get back to contender status in the Western Conference. It may not be as hard as you might think, given where the Mavericks are with everything involved. They finished the 25-26 season with a record of 26-56, which is their second worst record in the 21st century. It's hard seeing that, and it's hard saying that, but it was just a disaster of a season from the get-go, and everyone knows why. But now we do have something to look forward to. The bright side of everything is that the Mavericks have found their third generational talent in the last 30 years, going from Dirk Nowitzki to Luka Doncic and now Cooper Flagg. This is a guy who can be a future number one on a title contending team, and he proved beyond all doubt that he was the best prospect in last year's draft and that he can continue to lead this franchise going forward. His final stats for the season in 70 games played, missed a few games because of injury and whatnot, but he finished 21 points a night, 6.7 boards, 4.5 assists, shot a very respectable 46.8% from the field, and the three-point percentage was low at 29.5, but I think this offseason, Flagg is going to work on that three-point shot, and I would fully expect an improvement in that department next season. Look, it was a very good first season individually for Cooper Flagg. I think he proved that the Mavericks can trust him with the keys to the franchise moving forward, and they are going to do so starting as soon as May when the Mavericks hire a new general manager. So I think the future with Flagg, at least, is very, very optimistic, and now it's about putting the right pieces around him to be able to succeed here in today's NBA world. Make sure you guys join the family here at Mavericks Today because we'll have more off-season content coming soon, from mock drafts to news, rumors, trade rumors. All of that stuff will be right here on the channel surrounding the Dallas Mavericks. If something happens regarding the Mavs, you know where to find it right here on the channel at youtube.com/MavsTV. So let's hop right in. Mavericks offseason, the 2026 offseason is here, and credit to Bobby Marks of ESPN, who does great work over there. He put together this little primer for you guys, and the starting five as of right now, and obviously that will not be the opening night starting five, but you have Kyrie, Max Christie, Cooper Flagg, PJ Washington, and Daniel Gafford. And if we're being honest, I don't think PJ or Gafford or Christie, for that matter, will be in the opening night starting lineup. So I think you're going to see at least three of those five either go to the bench or get traded. You have your reserves there as Klay Thompson heading into the final year of his deal. Ryan Nembhard on a restricted contract because he was elevated from the two-way to the active roster, and then A.J. Johnson is under contract as well, as is Naji Marshall, Caleb Martin, and Derek Lively, who is eligible for an extension this offseason. You can see your free agents of the team on screen right there, and I don't know how many of those free agents will be re-signed by the Mavericks. I think a couple of them might. I think you could see Marvin Bagley, Moussa Cisse, and Ryan Nembhard all return. I don't think you're going to see Brandon Williams or Dwight Powell return to this squad, and maybe Chris Middleton as well. I know they liked what Middleton brought to the team this season after the trade with the Washington Wizards. You see the draft picks there, and you can see the exceptions, which we will get back to later in the show regarding the exceptions, the exceptions and potential free agency. Now let's take a look at the lottery odds and exactly where the Mavericks stand. Now, it's not finalized because the Mavericks and the Pelicans will have a coin flip for who gets the seventh best odds here in this draft. We don't know exactly when that coin flip is going to take place, but I believe it's going to be next Monday. The Mavericks, by winning last night's game, may have kind of screwed themselves, because if you look at it, they have a better chance to stay put or move down in the lottery than they do to get into the top four. It's a 33% chance basically at getting the 8th overall pick, and then 9 is 31.1. So your second biggest outcome essentially is moving down in the draft. And if you know anything about the history of the Dallas Mavericks and the lottery, yeah, chances are they're staying put or moving down, just because that's usually how the cookie crumbles with this team. They got lucky one season, and it was last year. In the 46-year history of the Mavericks, it's happened one time. It happened to be in 2025, and it ended up getting them Cooper Flagg. All right, all that being said, perfect offseason time. Number one, we're here again. 1 year later. Hire a competent general manager. Last season, My number one thing to do for the Mavericks in the perfect offseason was to fire the current general manager. They did not do that. Instead, they waited until, 11 games into the season to do so? My number one thing they needed to do was fire Nico Harrison. Now my number one thing they need to do is hire a competent general manager. It is just so important to the future of this franchise. And yes, the rumors are out there that Patrick Dumont, who told Brad Townsend of the Dallas Morning News that he's going to kick the search into overdrive starting Monday morning. Where do the Mavericks go? Do they go for an experienced guy? Do they go for one of the currently internal candidates? I think when you're looking at the external guys, these are people you need to keep an eye on. Tim Connelly, the president of the Minnesota Timberwolves, there's rumors that he could be stepping down this offseason. You have Masai Ujiri, who obviously was the architect of the 2019 champion Toronto Raptors. He is free, so you could just interview him straight up because he is not currently in an NBA position. The Mavericks aren't getting Sam Presti, but he was mentioned as a potential name. I don't think they're getting R.C. Buford or Brad Stevens either, but they were mentioned as names that the Mavericks could at minimum inquire on, so had to throw them on the board there for you. But if we're picking from this list, I think you're looking at Tim Connelly and Masai Ujiri as potential candidates as well. And then you can't count out the two internal candidates, the two current co-interim general managers, Matt Riccardi on your right, Michael Finley on your left. I do think that those guys did a pretty good job after the firing of Harrison to try and rebound, gain some assets, which they did in the Anthony Davis trade to the Washington Wizards. So it would not shock me whatsoever if it was either one of these guys. And you need to keep in mind Dennis Lindsey as well, who is vice president there with the Detroit Pistons, who was part of this front office in 2024. So keep an eye on him. Bunch of names out there. We don't know where the Mavericks are going to go, but Dumont did say he wants a guy in place by mid-May. Reading the tea leaves there, he wants a guy in place right around the NBA lottery, which will take place on May 10th. So keep an eye around that date for when the Mavericks might hire their next general manager. All right, you guys drop some names down in the comment section. I've given you 8 names here on today's show to keep an eye on, but who do you want as the next Mavericks general manager? Let me know down in the comment section. This will be today's pinned question, so you'll see it there at the top of the comment section. Number 2, I think you need to trade P.J. Washington. And it's not because I don't like P.J. Washington, the player. It's because I don't think that P.J. necessarily fits on this roster anymore. He's heading in to the first year of that 4-year extension that he signed last offseason with the Mavericks. 4 years, $89 million bucks. Are the Mavericks going to bring a 4-year, $89 million player off the bench? Probably not, right? I do like PJ Washington. I genuinely do, and I think he's a really solid player. He had a good year for the Mavericks this year. Probably not as good as his last year and a half after he got traded from the Charlotte Hornets to the Mavs, but he was still really solid, right? He dealt with some injuries this year, was limited to just 56 games, but he did average 14 points. He did average 7 boards, and, he was slightly below league average from 3 and okay from the field. He had a really bad stretch there in November, December where he just couldn't find his way at all. And at the end of the day, I think it's in the best interest of the Mavericks to try and find a PJ Washington trade. Now, obviously it takes 2 to tango, right? Like, will it be possible for the Mavericks to find a trade partner for a guy who is heading into the first year of a 4-year, $90 million extension? I don't know if that will be the case, but I do think that they're going to be able to have some sort of flexibility this offseason. And whether it's PJ Washington, whether it's Daniel Gafford, whether it's Klay Thompson, who talked in his exit interview about he doesn't know what the future is holding. He doesn't know, what is going to happen this offseason despite him being under contract. I think any of those 3 vets, I would be shocked, to be honest, if all 3 of those vets were on the team and at least one of them was not dealt this offseason. Washington would be the guy that I'm dealing, but you guys let me know down in the comments, who would you deal between PJ, Klay Thompson, and Daniel Gafford. Number 3 on the list here. Extend Naji Marshall. I think this absolutely has to happen for the Dallas Mavericks. Naji Marshall was a fantastic player for this team this year. He had a career season. Oh, yeah, and by the way, next year, making less than $10 million. I think he earned an extension. There is no question about it. What that extension looks like, I don't know. Can you get him for 3 years and $45 million? I think that would be a pretty damn good bargain for the Mavericks, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I'm not sure that even gets it done. Are you looking closer to the 20 million per year range as opposed to the 15 million? Can you be in the middle somewhere, maybe 17 or 18? I'm not sure. But Naji was excellent this year, played in 74 games, was was available for this team basically the entire year. Over 15 points a night, was a good rebounder, was a good playmaker, was efficient, especially in the mid-range. You know you're not going to expect him to hit three-pointers. He had the same three-point percentage as Cooper Flagg at 29.5%. Now, if he can work on it this offseason, which he had said on Twitter that he's going to be working on his three-point shot this offseason, can he get to 33, 34%? And if he can, that points per game number goes up to 16, 17, maybe even 18 a night. And at less than 10 million, that's the biggest bargain in the NBA next year. Now, again, what is his extension going to be? What will it look like? What will he be asking for? Can you get him for 3 years and $45 million? I honestly don't know. I think that's probably on the low end of what you could expect a Naji Marshall contract extension to come out to. I think that it's possible that they don't come to an agreement and they could possibly seek a trade for him as well. Now, I absolutely want to keep Naji on this roster no matter what, but it will all depend this offseason because he absolutely is going to want an extension. I do think the Mavericks will want to give him one, but is the number right and will the years be right? We'll get to the rest of our perfect offseason here in just a moment, but let me tell you guys about our sponsor of today's show. Shout out to PrizePicks. The basketball playoffs are here, and there is no better way to cash in if you're right on the high-flying hoops action than PrizePicks, America's #1 sports picks app. Every bucket, every diamond, every win means that much more when you're playing on PrizePicks. And with their brand new team picks markets, you can now pick game winners, spreads, and totals on top of the player picks you already know. So cash in if you're right during all the clutch buckets and slam dunks this spring with team picks over on PrizePicks. I've loved using the team picks feature over on PrizePicks during the college basketball tournament, and I'm going to continue to do so during the basketball playoffs as well. Pick the winner straight up on PrizePicks. Who's going to win the next big basketball game? Who's going to win the fight? Back your takes with real money. Team picks are available now in 35 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Washington, and more, and it makes it super easy to pick game winners, spreads, and totals all on PrizePicks. Team picks is great, but so are the daily fantasy lineups that you know and love, and I have a season-long football projection for you guys. I'm taking the more on Myles Garrett, 14 sacks. He broke the sack record last year. I think that's free. And I'm going to take the more on Puka Nacua receiving touchdowns and the more on Bijan Robinson rush yards. So you can go copy those picks or go make picks of your own. Just download the PrizePicks app today and pick your first game winner, spread, or total as the playoff push rolls on. And get $50 in daily fantasy lineups when you play your first $5 lineup using code CLNS. That's code CLNS to get $50 in daily fantasy lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. PrizePicks Predict is a registered FCM offering. Team picks and culture picks as event contracts. Trading involves significant risk, not for all. The content provided is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice. A recommendation to trade any commodity interest or an offer to open an account. Chat Sports is not registered with the CFTC or NFA. PrizePicks Predict does not endorse or guarantee statements made by third-party promoters or influencers. Please consult with a qualified professional before making any trading decisions. All right, moving on to our perfect off season. You have to make the right draft pick, correct? I mean, I think that's pretty obvious when it comes to what the Mavs' perfect offseason looks like. Now, this team has a multitude of options here, especially with 2 first-round picks. But we're going to talk about the lottery pick here, of course. Again, you currently sit tied for 7th. The coin flip will be next week in the odds. So we don't know where the Mavericks are picking, but what we do know, they're going to get a hell of a player wherever it may be. Your top 3 prospects have not changed. It is still these 3 in Darren Peterson, AJ DeBonsa, and Cam Boozer. I don't think there's any question about that if you are in the top 3 of this draft, you are selecting one of these 3. Now, the fit with Cam Boozer alongside Cooper Flagg, that would be something to monitor because, you know, they're kind of sort of clashing styles and sort of similar in stature, except Flagg is a much better ball handler than Boozer is and can run the offense. But keep that in mind. If the Mavericks do end up 3rd and those 2 guys, Peterson and DeBonsa, are gone, it could get interesting for the Mavericks. And then if you end up landing like on your odds, so let's say the Mavericks get the 7th or the 8th overall pick, you're looking at one of these guys. I think Caleb Wilson will probably be the 4th overall pick, so you can almost rule him out. But then you have guys like Darius Acuff, Kingston Flemings, Mikael Brown Jr., and Keaton Wagler as potential selections for the Mavericks in the top 10. And I would be pretty happy with any of those 4, but I obviously have talked about over the last almost couple of months now, I would lean Darius Acuff as my favorite out of these guys, but the guy I think would be most likely would be Mikal Brown Jr. He's a 6'5 guard who can really play make and he can really score. Again, he has some availability issues. He had a little back problem in his freshman season at Louisville, so as long as his medicals check out and as long as his combine workout or private workout, whatever he does, goes well, then I would absolutely be comfortable with taking him. I think a guard will be the direction that the Mavericks go with that top overall pick, and then it goes from there. The overall theme of this is this. You have to hit on this pick. You just simply have to. It is the last pick that you control until 2030. You have to make absolutely certain that the selection you are making in the lottery is going to be the right one. And obviously, of course, there is no guarantee when it comes to the NBA draft. Do you take the safest pick? Do you take the guy you know is going to fit best with your team? That is a decision that the new general manager will have to make, and I frankly don't envy that decision because it certainly will be a difficult one. But hopefully the Mavericks just end up in the top 3, which they deserve, by the way, not the least of which being the Luka Doncic trade. But they were very ethical this season, and yes, they lost a lot of basketball games, but they played them all out. They played to win. They did not tank. They did not sit their starters. Like the guys who were out were genuinely hurt. They did not actually fake some injuries. They didn't do any BS like the Memphis Grizzlies or the Utah Jazz did. So the Mavs deserve to be in the top 4, and hopefully the good karma will pay off. All right, final thing to do this offseason. Got to use free agency to build around our guy Cooper Flagg. He is the present and the future of this franchise, and the entire Mavericks operation should be to build around him on the court and off the court. I want to revisit this Mavericks offseason from Bobby Marks because he had some interesting insight on what the Mavericks exceptions will be this offseason. They are currently below the luxury tax there, so they will have the full non-taxpayer mid-level exception, which will be around $15 million. They will also have the biannual exception available to them at $5.5 million, and that is what they used to sign JaVale McGee a couple years ago. So hopefully it's not as disastrous as it was last season. They'll have a couple of trade exceptions as well at $20 million and $2.9 million. Now those trade exceptions may or may not get used. Hopefully they are, but in all likelihood they probably won't be. But they have them available to them at their disposal. And then obviously you have the veteran minimum exception, which means you can sign unlimited veteran minimum players. Don't count against the cap there. And then your first round and your second round draft choices, those exceptions as well. So the roster next year, we don't exactly know how it's going to shape up, but I think it's going to look something like this. I think your starting 5 will be Kyrie Irving, whoever your draft pick is, Cooper Flagg, Naji Marshall, and Derek Lively. I think that is your starting 5 for next year. And then off the bench, you will have Ryan Nembhard, you'll have Max Christie, potentially you'll have Klay Thompson, potentially you'll have Caleb Martin. I can see him as a trade candidate as well. You'll have yet another draft pick, or 2 other draft picks, I guess, because you'll have one at 30 and then one in the second round as well. Will PJ Washington be here? Will Daniel Gafford be here? That remains to be seen. But this is just sort of a shell, if you will, of what the Mavericks roster will look like. And with that being said, there is no excuse to not be aggressive in free agency if you are the Dallas Mavericks. You are under the luxury tax. You have room to play with. You have to be aggressive and proactive in going and building this roster. What can you find in free agency? You can find a pretty decent player for the mid-level exception. I know that for a fact. So hopefully the Mavs are able to do so. They're able to get another contributor into this rotation, and they're able to just sort of curate this roster to make Cooper Flagg's second season the best it can possibly be. The Mavericks really aren't that far off from being in the playoffs like next season. They're really not. Like, they could absolutely be a top 6 seed in the West if you factor in what Cooper Flagg's ascension will be. You factor in that Kyrie Irving will hopefully be healthy, and God willing, Derek Lively will be healthy as well. And you just can't count on that. But if you get all of these things to go the right way, yes, the Mavericks can be good as soon as next season. So that's my perfect offseason. Hire a competent general manager, trade PJ Washington, extend Naji Marshall, make the right draft pick, and use free agency to build around Cooper Flagg. Time for you guys to grade my perfect offseason down in the comment section. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know what you guys think, and drop yours down below as well in the comment section. Let me know what you think the Mavericks need to do to get back to their rightful place at the top of the Western Conference. All right, y'all, that will do it for today's show. Appreciate you for tuning in, as always, to the channel. The offseason is just getting started. And make sure you stay tuned because it's going to be a very, very busy one for the Dallas Mavericks.